G'day mates, in today's video I want to kick off talking about who was and who wasn't invited to the FNCS LAN Invitational. We now know which giant pros are going and honestly which big pros so far have yet to be invited. Also, we had a big server performance update come out last night. I want to talk about whether it did improve the servers today for FNCS. We also had our first taste of FNCS and unfortunately it didn't really kick off with a bang. We have some of the lowest player participation we've ever seen for FNCS, with regions like Asia and Brazil not even having 2,000 teams playing, so only 1 point qualified you through to round 2. I want to talk about why that is and what's going on with some of the big teams. There's a lot to talk about. Let's just jump into it. Before we jump into talking about FNCS, I want to talk about the FNCS Invitational because we just got our first look at who is going and who is potentially not going. We had the first wave of invites go out today. So FN Competitive tweeted out saying the first wave of hashtag FNCS Invitational 2022 invites have been sent. Now, we have a few confirmed people going. I say confirmed because the only way we actually know who is going and who is just lying is FN Competitive actually went and was replying to a bunch of people saying they are or are not going. So it's a little bit weird. We don't have an actual official list, but right now, so far we have 1 Asia Pro, 4 Middle East Pros, 5 Brazil Pros, 4 OCE Pros, 16 EU Pros, 5 NA East, and 3 NA West. Now, as you can see, that ratio is a little bit off. It looks mostly normal with EU having more of them, but so far you'll notice NA East, especially for being the second biggest region, doesn't have that many more. I have heard some rumors going around that Epic is deliberately inviting NA players towards the end because they want to give more time to the international players to get their visas and get their travel and everything sorted, because obviously traveling from, you know, like Denmark to North Carolina is going to be a lot harder and a lot more serious than traveling from like New York to North Carolina. So it makes sense, but so far some of the names we have invited, I'm just going to put a giant list here. I'll get my like editor to make a graphic or something. Obviously this is a lot of people. Some of the big names you'd expect, there's Booger in there, you've got Rezon, Thomas HD, Queasy, you have some big names like Volks coming out of OC, which is exciting to see. You got Tripper, you got Chapix, you've got really big names in there, but we're also missing some big names. Like there are some really huge players who haven't yet been invited, but this is just the first wave. Now, we were specifically told that there was no way to guarantee you'd be invited to the LAN event. It is just that. It's an invitational. Epic is going to invite who they want for whatever reasons they want, but they did say placements are going to play a big factor, and based on the invites so far, it looks like they are. It looks like the actual invitations have gone out being based pretty heavily on placements at this point. There's some people I'm worried about that didn't get an invite, but I'm sure they will end up getting them. There's only a few names that I'm surprised got invited, but I don't want to put them on blast and be like, I don't think this guy's good enough, so I'm not going to say exactly who. You can go through the list and say whether you think some of these people should or should not have been invited, but it has me super excited. We don't know when the future waves of invites are coming out. We don't know who is going to be guaranteed. There might be more people than on this list that got invited. They just haven't posted about it publicly on social media, or I've just missed it, but it looks like quite a few international pros are being invited. The weird part is, and I'm still confused on how this works, you can play with other duos than the one that you got invited with. So let's say that, you know, Booga and Miro both got invited. They don't have to play the LAN event together, but I do believe they have to play the LAN event with another teammate who also got invited. I don't think they can just randomly bring some other teammate to play with for the event, so it's going to create some really interesting teams. I'm assuming most of the duos who got invited will play together. Like for example, OCE, Volks and Luda got invited, and Basil and Jace. I'm guessing they're not going to mix their teams up. They're probably going to stick together, but it might be pretty awkward, especially in the smaller regions, for teams that get invited that are no longer playing together and don't want to play together. They're going to have to, like, I don't know. I don't think they can bring another teammate. They're just going to have to play together, which will be pretty interesting. I guess they played together and did well once, so they could probably just put their differences aside and suck it up and make it work, but we don't have all the information yet on the LAN event. I thought it was exciting to go through who was invited and who wasn't. I wish I had more info for you. I will cover more in future videos. All right, now let's get into talking about FNCS. Now, if you watched any of the games today or you looked on social media, you know a lot of this isn't going to be too positive. But first off, I want to talk about what was one big positive. Epic tweeting out that they released a maintenance patch for all platforms that did originally appear to fix the servers, or at least make them a lot better. I started watching EU. The games were pretty stacked, like 30-man rotatings, I guess, and they were pretty good. There was no major issues, and honestly, I thought the servers were looking really good. Unfortunately, though, as the games went on and we went towards those 40 and 50-man rotating zones like we're going to see for most of FNCS, especially in the big games, we started to see things like this.
I'm good. You good,
Okay,
sweetheart?
you looked at me?
Yep. Eat shot. What the? I'm just dead.
So as you can see, not just complaining. I'm not complaining the pros can't do flawless quad edits in endgame. Like, that is actual game-breaking bugs. So to Epic's credit, there have been less of these today. I watched all the games on NA East, EU, and I watched most of NA West. It was like an 11-hour stream, and most of it looked pretty good. There was way less of these kind of bugs, but you still have to acknowledge that they are happening. So if Epic can maybe drop a few more of these maintenance patches, a few more of these updates to try to fix things up, we could be in a good spot. Epic did also make another big change only to competitive today. They removed all boulders and timber pines, the trees that fall over, and they removed fireflies from chest loot. Now, a lot of people thought this was in an attempt to make the servers better, but it doesn't actually say anywhere on the tweet that this is for server performance. I'm guessing they wanted the boulders and timber pines out of the game because a lot of people are finding them way too overpowered. When they first joined the game, like the way the trees worked, it wasn't so crazy, but clearly somewhere along the line, the physics around the timbers and the boulders have changed. Now you can like send them flying 50 meters across the map, just full breaking into people's builds. Like, they are pretty broken, and this didn't really, you know, I mean, again, it's just seeing more stuff taken out of competitive, but I know the boulders and timber pines a lot of people hate, so it is what it is. The fireflies makes perfect sense. Why are fireflies in competitive when they create no fire? They're just clogging up the loot pool. While we're at it, we should probably get things like heavy ammo out of the game that also, again, just clogging the loot pool doesn't achieve anything. But so overall, a good update. Maybe that could help fix the servers. I would say though that this update did come out midway through EU, and clips like the one you just saw from Bucky happen on NA. So even with the maintenance patch and these changes, there are still some major issues with the servers. Next thing with FNCS we need to talk about, and I'm sure a lot of you guys were expecting this, the numbers. How few people are actually playing FNCS this season. So much so, the Brazil and Asia, you needed 0 points to make it to round 2. All you had to do was queue up and die on spawn in a single game, and you made it to round 2 FNCS on 2 regions. That being because 2,000 teams made it from round 1 to round 2, and both regions had less than 2,000 teams playing. EU had 97 points to make top 2,000, which is by far the highest because EU is the biggest region. NA East required 70, and as of me making this video, there's only half an hour to go on NA West, and it's currently 25 points. 25 points for one of the main regions of Fortnite to get top 2,000. Clearly, the numbers are down. I don't have the exact numbers right now, and maybe after this FNCS qualifier, I'll get all the numbers together, but you already know things aren't looking too great as far as participation. Now, you probably already have an idea in your head of why this is, and I'm gonna say it's a combination of things. Firstly, we have a meta that a lot of people have not been enjoying. Most competitive players haven't been enjoying it for most of chapter 3, some of them not enjoying it since the start, and we've seen very little changes of the competitive meta. Not a lot has been added, everything's been taken away. Even with good changes like the combat SMG that's been really well received, having that vaulted, we're back to a very similar meta. Chapter 3 season 1 and chapter 3 season 3 are almost identical in terms of competitiveness, and a lot of people are just kind of bored of that. You combine that with number 2 reason, Arena. Obviously, we've had some major changes to Arena. They made it harder to get champs, which a lot of people, myself included, have been asking for, but unfortunately, Epic did it in the wrong way. They made it harder, but didn't really give any more rewards for getting to champs, so a lot of people just don't want to play because it's harder, but there's no real reward for it. And unfortunately, the way they made the point format now, with you're only getting 5 points per kill and losing like 70 to bus fare, it almost just doesn't feel rewarding to even queue up. As soon as you get champs, you don't want to play because you're going to drop out of champs if you mess up a couple games. We even had Bucky and Creo, 2 of the best players in the world today, having to grind their way back to champs right before FNCS started today because Bucky wanted to play some Arena and have some fun, and he lost points. So I get it. I know a lot of people are going to come at me saying that we were asking for a change in the rank system, and we were, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out making Arena more difficult to get champs, not rewarding W King, but then giving no actual reward for getting champs more than previous seasons. All you get is the ability to play in FNCS, and also you get a gun wrap. That wasn't going to make people play. So now with less people playing Arena, like I always talk about with queues in battle royales, it dies exponentially. The less people that play, the queues get even longer, and because the queues now longer, less people want to play, making the queues even longer. So it makes things worse and worse. So I believe those 2 factors, and then combined with preseason, another thing that I have made countless videos talking about why preseason is so terrible. When you add those two factors together, a meta that people aren't enjoying playing, and then a more difficult arena system to get Champions Division, you combine that with less time to get Champions Division, and of course, the player base is going to drop. Now, I would like to say, I don't see anything massively wrong with making Champions Division more exclusive, and therefore making the tournaments harder to play and therefore better. I get that, but Fortnite does thrive off being an open esport. The fact that almost anyone on the day can queue up and play. Now, FNCS isn't quite like that. It is the premier big tournament. So if Epic did make it harder to get Champs Division so the players in FNCS were better, I would get that, but it's not the right way right now. It's not like, oh man, I really want to play FNCS, man. I've been grinding Champs, but I just couldn't get it. No, you talk to any of your friends, it's like, oh bro, I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered getting Champs. It's too boring. I don't want to do it. You know, it's not the right amount. People keep telling me, oh, but just because Champs is harder to get to, that could be a good thing. And I agree, but it should be hard to get to, but people still want to get to it. Most people aren't playing FNCS not because they can't, they just don't want to. I'm sure a lot of you guys who watch this video, if you wanted to get Champs, you could camp in a bush, push no fights, get your placement points, get Champs, and play FNCS. But a lot of you have decided you just don't want to this season, and I fully understand it. I'm the same. This is probably one of the first seasons I don't get Champions Division, but I at least wanted to talk about my thoughts on why I think the player participation is so low and competitive right now. I know a lot of you guys probably want me to talk about some of the big new teams. We have like teams like Peterbot and Byler, the FNCS champs, getting back together, and I will talk about that in a future video. I'll probably talk about that after the qualifiers end, so I can talk about which new teams are doing well and which is struggling, because pretty much everyone qualified out of round 1 into round 2, because like I just discussed, it really wasn't that difficult. So until round 4 is done, I'm probably not going to talk too much about the big teams' performances, because right now there's just not enough to go off. Alright guys, that does it for another video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please chuck a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one.